Councilmember Lowenstein.
I don't think that there is any way to make sure that everybody who ever wants to speak to us can do that. I look at it a little bit, the way we're going to do it is a little bit like the way the airlines do when they book seats. They put people on standby. And we're going to have people on standby who, if they're lucky, they will get to speak to us.
Good evening. If you are able, please rise and join us for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk please call the roll of council?
Councilmember Broome?
Here.
Councilmember Johnson?
Here.
Councilmember Lowenstein?
Here.
Councilmember Reed?
Here.
Councilmember Carlberg?
Here.
Councilmember Braden?
Here.
Councilmember Teal? Here. Councilmember Higgins?
Here.
Councilmember Easthope?
Here.
Councilmember Woods?
Here.
Mayor Heacha?
Here. Thank you. We start out with our public commentary section. I would note that there is a chair and portable microphone for anyone who'd like to address council while seated. Also note that speakers are not able to grant their reserved time to an alternate speaker. Our first speaker is Mary Bijan.
Good evening. I'm Mary Bijan. I'm a resident of the 5th Ward, and I'm the chairperson of the American Civil Liberties Union of Michigan's Washtenaw County branch. I understand that you will take some additional time to modify Councilmember Reed's proposal to limit public commentary, and of course we're pleased to hear this. As you know, the ACLU is primarily concerned about a prohibition against speaking on non-agenda items. Council clearly benefits from citizen input, and limiting commentary to agenda-only items would essentially limit free speech of city residents. If the proposal is modified to allow non-agenda items to be commented upon, that would be acceptable to the ACLU. I want to thank you again on behalf of the ACLU and the community for taking a stand for freedom this past summer, and to say that we look forward to Mr. Fraser's report and to reviewing a modified proposal for public commentary that does not unnecessarily limit free speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sol Metz.
My name is Sol Metz. I live at 1750 Fulmer in the 5th Ward. I've spoken to council a number of times in the past few years, probably not a lot, sometimes on issues that were on the agenda, sometimes not. But we live in a representative democracy, and in order for me to be represented by the people that are elected, I need access to my representative to be able to speak and on any issue that concerns me, whether or not it's on some particular agenda or not. This agenda item seems to be an attempt to silence people who are trying to get an amendment passed, resolution passed on divestment from Palestine, divestment from Israel, I'm sorry. A lot of us are working on that. A lot of us are Jews. A lot of Jews are working against it. But I see the council continually voiding this issue. And I think we need to keep on talking so at least you can listen to what we say, put it on the agenda, vote it up or vote it down or amend it. But it needs to be discussed. People are losing their lives on both sides of this conflict, and it's being driven with our tax money, which is not being able to be used in the city because the federal government is taking it. It is a local issue. We need to, it needs to be decided by council. I'm not going to go into the pros and cons. I think what Israel has been doing is horrific. I think the suicide bombers are also horrific. But I think the occupation is a problem, and we are supporting it with our tax money. We are supporting the war with our tax money. We need to stop it, and please don't cut our ability to speak to council. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alan Haber.
Hello, Council. I'm Alan Haber from the 3rd Street, 5th Ward, an Ann Arborite, a Jew. I wish you a good, productive, courageous new year. Concerning the Human Rights Advisory Commission proposed resolution on Palestine, I hope you will accept their advice.
Our next speaker is Helen Fox.
My name is Helen Fox. I'm a member of the Ann Arbor Human Rights Commission, as well as a faculty member at the University of Michigan. I want to express my concern tonight about the attempt to restrict the amount and kinds of public comments that can be made at council meetings. It seems obvious that this proposal is being put forward because some council members want to stifle comment on the issue of human rights abuses in Israel's occupied territories. These council members are perhaps tired of hearing comments that they perceive as irrelevant or insensitive or tedious and boring, or perhaps frightening because they tell a truth that is hard to hear. But surely some of us remember that in the past, other issues brought by activists to council have caused much louder and much ruder disruptions than this one. I remember one council meeting a few years ago where audience members waving placards and chanting slogans totally shut down a city council meeting. I remember speakers being incredibly rude to Mayor Ingrid Sheldon, calling her by her first name from this desk, and repeatedly and purposefully exceeding their time limits. I remember when the police were out there in the hall waiting to remove protesters should they completely prevent council from doing business yet again. And still, at that time, to my knowledge, there was never any mention of shutting down public comments. There was no one that suggested that public comment time be restricted or access to the democratic process be denied. My University of Michigan colleague, Tom O'Donnell, has written you today to suggest that instead of limiting public access, City Council should be increasing and encouraging the democratic participation of the people at the city level. When our federal institutions are today nearly inaccessible to ordinary people's voices, when our rubber-stamped Congress is bound by a million threads to the richest business, oil, military, and other special interests, and stand to profit handsomely from the so-called war on terror, city councils could emerge as a new democratic counterweight. Mary Beejan has told you tonight about the city councils, the number of city councils that have passed resolutions against restrictions of civil liberties by the federal authorities under the Patriot Act. And over 160 city councils have voted their opposition to the unilateral invasion of Iraq. In Ann Arbor, grassroots campaigns have brought issues of a living wage and affordable housing to the city council agenda from this podium when they might never have been considered. Instead of stifling free speech or putting it to the very end of the council's agenda, sending the message that it is the least important thing that you would ever want to hear, instead of doing that, council should be finding ways to increase public participation, loosen the rules, hear more public debate. Please vote no on any measure that restricts public participation at the grassroots level, the only level where democracy is alive.
Thank you. And our eighth public speaker is Marcia Fetterbush.
Thank you. I'm Marcia Fetterbush of 2000 Anderson Court, Ann Arbor. About 3 years ago, I went to talk to the Detroit School Board about an unfair athletic rule they passed. I prepared a 4-minute talk, since whenever I'd spoken before a school board or a city council anywhere, 4 minutes near the beginning, even when they threatened to cut it, was what they allowed. When I got there, I found it was 2 minutes at the end. How can I cut it down to 2 minutes? Anyone who knows me knows I can barely say my name in 2 minutes. At least you're talking about 3 minutes, but don't let my mention of 2 minutes influence you. But it's not long enough for many of us unless we speak very fast. The Detroit School Board, you know, isn't run by a superintendent. It's got a CEO chosen by Governor Engler. I cut out a great deal while I was sitting there, and at 1:30 a.m. I gave my 2-minute talk, along with a lot of other people, and they were all very angry, knowing that 2 minutes at the end of a meeting meant that the board didn't really care about public concerns. That's hard on many segments of the population, seniors, even older than I am, disabled people, students who have to get up early, and workers who have to go to their jobs early. It's not fitting for Ann Arbor City Council to do this. And only letting people talk about items on the agenda at the beginning is not in Ann Arbor's tradition of intelligent creativity, setting the tone for the city government's reflecting people's wishes. People have been coming before the City Council asking you to divest from Israel or not to invest in Israel's military. That's not very radical. We believe that Cambridge has passed a resolution to that effect, so there may be other cities across the country. It's a good thing you're not governing the city in 1984 when 4,500 people signed a petition asking the council not to invest in Israel.
D1, the resolution revising council rules, moved by Councilmember Graydon, seconded by Councilmember Reed. Discussion on D1.
I've listened to both sides, and initially I thought that changing our council rules was going to be a good idea, but the more I've read emails today and listened to our speakers, I'm less inclined to look in terms of changes. And certainly I think it's important for us to be able to hear citizens as they want to speak to us about things which are on our agenda. Yet I know that the beauty of our democracy is that they can come to us as their local officials and talk to us about whatever's on their mind. And having sat through a number of meetings and listened to comments and criticisms of us, you know, you have to get a thick skin. And I think I was one of the persons who let it be known how people sometimes have gotten under my skin. And for that, I'll say that, and that's probably going to happen from time to time. And yet, certainly they're still entitled to their opinion. And as we're elected, I guess we're supposed to listen to that. So I, at this point, would not like to see any changes to our council rules in this particular section. And so I'm not going to be voting in favor of this.
Councilmember Lawrence.
I don't think that there is any way to make sure that everybody who ever wants to speak to us can do that. I look at it a little bit, the way we're going to do it is a little bit like the way the airlines do when they book seats. They put people on standby. And we're going to have people on standby who, if they're lucky, they will get to speak to us.